Almost a year ago, Netflix released The Ritual. This is a monster movie slash horror movie slash thrasher movie. There's a lot of different tones mixed in together here, and a lot of you may have seen it, or a lot of you may have never heard of it, as I definitely didn't until a couple weeks ago. And after watching it, I think it's an extremely underrated film because I don't see that many people talking about it or discussing it, and yet Bird Box was kind of this giant movie that exploded, and everyone was talking about it, and there was a Bird Box challenge. Basically, that film went viral, and I don't think it was nearly as good as the film that is The Ritual. And if you want the short takeaway of this review, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. If you like scary films and you like suspense, you like thrillers and stuff like that, I highly recommend The Ritual. But if you're curious of my thoughts on it, and maybe you don't care about spoilers, feel free to stick around, because I think this is one of the Netflix films that people easily overlook and don't appreciate as much as maybe they should. So let's begin. So the film begins with kind of a hiker group. It's just a gang of guys who like the outdoors, who love exploring, and they're just in the city trying to decide where their next travel is going to be. And very early in the film, don't worry, this is not a spoiler, this is what sets up the rest of the film, one of their friends is murdered and killed at a liquor store from a gang of robbers. And in this situation, you'll notice very quickly that one of their friends, our main character of The Ritual, is kind of hiding, trying to not be noticed by the burglars. And of course, it's this decision of not being able to help his friend or just trying to leave the situation as quick as possible that results in his friend being dead. Now, it's not completely clear that if he would have interacted with this burglar group that he could have saved his friend. Very possibly he could have died in the process, but it's important you know that because for the rest of the story of the film, that decision of running and hiding opposed to standing up to your fear and facing the threat that is attacking you and your friends, that decision and that uncertainty of what could have happened is kind of what haunts our main character for the rest of the film. So to kind of celebrate the life and be in memorial of their friend who had passed away, they went on one hiking trip, kind of made a little little memorial of remembering their friend, and of course from here the journey back doesn't go very well. They make a shortcut through the woods, through Scandinavia, and they start noticing things are a little bit bizarre. Obviously don't want to get too carried away with just explaining the rest of the plot for you, but essentially weird things start happening in the woods. They start seeing corpses, they start hearing noises, they stay in this little cabin, weird bizarre things happen in the night, they all kind of have nightmares. But what I appreciate about this film, and I touched on this a little bit in Bird Box, is in my opinion, again this comes down to personal taste, you have to have a decent amount of showing your monster or whatever the scary antagonist is of your film, and also not showing them in order to build the right amount of suspense as a film is prolonged. And I think The Ritual, in my opinion, nails exactly how much monster you want to show and how much atmosphere building you want to do in the first couple acts of your film, because in The Ritual it almost makes you think that it's supernatural and that you will never actually see the monster that is haunting slash hunting our main characters of this film as they walk through the woods. One of them is obviously wounded, but the rest start getting picked off one by one, and this makes everyone very hostile towards each other. Even though they're a group of friends, their true grievances and their true hatred towards each other start to come out, particularly towards the one who potentially could have saved their friend, but again wasn't sure because he was hiding and he didn't want to be seen by the burglars who ended up killing their friend. And what I love about this monster is, for one, they're very, very slow to show it, but at the same time, if you want to watch The Ritual and you like scary movies like this, you will absolutely end up seeing yourself pausing the film and going, wait a minute, what was that? What was that? And I love films that do that because it just gives you a little bit of the chills. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely jump scares in The Ritual, some of them cheaper than others. You know, the movie gets quiet and then loud bang, loud noise happens, and things get pretty scary. But I also think a ton of the suspense building was done incredibly well without the cheap jump scares, and also just atmosphere building, like tiny things. Like one of my favorites was our main character is running up to the top of the hill because he thinks he sees light and he thinks that the forest is opening up. But then when he gets to the top, it's just more trees, but they've all kind of been scalped. There's no branches really on them. They're all just kind of sharp and pointing straight up. And he looks off into the woods, and it's like as far as you can see, it's just trees. It's just branches. But then out of the corner of your eye, you just see this tiny tad bit of movement. And it's not a loud jump scare. It's just enough to be off-putting, to throw off the people watching it, and also to really freak the crap out of your main character. And this film was really good at giving me goosebumps because it's just like, I think what this film got right was capitalizing on the idea that fear is from the unknown and making sure that the monster was not completely known, and we don't really have a good visual angle on the monster made it really, really intense as you were going throughout the film, because you're not exactly sure what the rules are or what it is or how it's going to affect what's going on. And it just kind of puts you in this panic state of like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I was interested enough in the drama that's going on between the characters because they're starting to go at each other's throats. They want to separate, they want to go off in different directions. And you're like, I feel for them because I want them all to get along, but there's this conflict going on. And that's really, I think, the focal point of the story. And the monster was just, you know, it's haunting them, it's hunting them, but it is causing them to go at each other. And what The Ritual did, which I found different from other monster movies, was this monster has some type of mental power over you. It can make you see things that aren't there, because whenever the monster attacks, it was able to present that situation that our main character was in with his friend at the liquor store getting robbed and getting attacked. It's able to recreate that situation, but not completely have him flash back to that. It like brings back that part of his past and implements it into the woods, and he's seeing it here and there. But whenever he does see that moment from his past, he again is reminded of what he could have done, or the fact that he hesitated and he wasn't there for his friend, and potentially that's why he died. But at the same time, you do get visuals as the film goes on of the monster more and more. Again, helps if you have a remote there to pause and rewind and see what the monster looks like. But I just found it absolutely fascinating that the film The Ritual was able to make a monster that capitalized on your greatest fear, essentially showing you your greatest insecurity or the most terrifying moment of your past, and use that as a weapon against you. Use that to distract you so that it can scratch you or taunt you or get you to freeze up in real time. And man, that was just a creative monster. Now, the second act of the film more takes place when you find out that there's this closed off society, group of people that kind of worship this monster. They called it the son of Loki, so I suppose if you want to get into the lore, it's kind of a god, but for a god, it's very weak in many different areas. But essentially, the second act of the film really does start to show you a full visual of the monster, both flesh and blood, and it is disturbing. It is this combination of moose and human, and it's got like 4 hooves, but it also has 2 arms and hands like a person, but it has eyes and a head, kind of more the size of a human, but still giant antlers. And you know, this film, when I was first watching it, I was like, okay, the suspense is good, but I bet the animation for this monster has to be terrible because they're not showing very much of it. And that's either because 1, they really know what they're doing, or 2, their animation budget was super low, and when the monster does show up, it's gonna look super fake. But honestly, once the monster shows up, they actually start going all in with it. They show you a lot of it, and that's what I appreciated about The Ritual, is it built up the suspense, and it gave you very, very short glimpses, but then at the end, it does deliver and does show you a full top-to-body look of this monster and how creepy and disturbing it is, and how it's able to affect you mentally and physically. And our main character is forced to fight his way through it, and fight his way through these pagan worshippers who are, of course, sacrificing and praying to this god, hoping that it doesn't kill them. You find out this monster kind of has this need to be worshipped, which I guess plays into the fact that it is a god, or it is at least part god. But still, at the same time, I cannot give the filmmakers enough credit to the fact that you earned your reveal of the monster, and you actually did deliver, opposed to a film that was very popular, Bird Box, which I think built up a lot of suspense, but never delivered, because at the end of the day, the aliens or the monster, or whatever they were, was just invisible to the human eye. You couldn't see it, even though it blocked out light. And even since I've reviewed Bird Box, I found more problems with it that make me not like the movie as much, but hey, I watched it once. Regardless though, The Ritual I had far much more appreciation for. I think the ending will be satisfying to a lot of you out there who haven't seen it. And you know what? I could spoil the ending for you and say spoiler warning, but I'm not going to, because if you're this interested in the film at this point and you like scary movies and you like monster movies, I recommend checking it out. It's on Netflix and I had a good time watching it. Maybe you won't, but of course, let me know what you think of The Ritual if you have seen it down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have an excellent day. Take care.